This is Jeremy Kubicek from Giant Worldwide. And if you want to maximize your potential for success, then I would recommend highly for you to subscribe to the Success is a Choice podcast.
Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Welcome to Success is a Choice podcast. I'm your host, Jamy Bechler. Today we have a special treat. You see, we have two guests today, not just one. We have double trouble, so to speak. Joining us today are two guests, Greg and Julie Gorman. They are the authors of What I Wish My Mother Had Told Me About Marriage, and their recent book, their latest book is called Two Are Better Than One. They're John Maxwell executive coaches, and they are also life plan facilitators with the Patterson Center. They're high energy and high impact. So welcome, Greg and Julie Gorman. Thanks for being here, guys.
Oh, we're super excited to be here. Thanks, Jamie.
Great morning already.
Awesome. I appreciate it. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, what your background is, and kind of what inspired you to write your books, and in particular, your most recent one, Two Are Better Than One.
Love it. Yeah, we have always worked together. We've been together for about 20 years now, and our entire marriage relationship has been working in tandem. What we realized is a lot of times in life, right, there's this opportunity to find problems, to solve those problems. And what we found is that the most successful couples are couples who live into a purpose-focused thinking, not a problem-focused thinking.
Yeah, the truth is we have a great marriage, but you know what? It hadn't always been that way. And
you can't go telling stories already.
No, not yet. But we learned that again, as Julie iterated, if we spend our time, and I believe that most of our nature is to always look for what we can better. In other words, we tend to focus a lot on what the problems are and what we can do to fix them. But the problem is that if every thought leader throughout time is correct the one thing that they agree on is that we become what we think about. We find what we're looking for. What you feed grows. What you starve dies. And I could go on and continue to rephrase that a million different ways that it's been said. King Solomon says, as we think, in other words, as we're dwelling, the things that we dwell on, we become. So as we think in our heart, so we are. And so with all of this, we decided, maybe there's some secret sauce in there. So what we decided to do is really in our own marriage, in our businesses, in our parenting, and in every way of our finances, we started flipping those problems on their ears and asking a different question. What's the desired result? Not how can we fix the problem, but what's the desired result? And that's exactly after doing that and working with several clients over the years, we decided we should write about it and share it with the world to get that message out there. So that's really what inspired this past book. You want to talk about the newest one, babe?
Yeah, so the newest one is...
actually comes out in January.
Yeah, it comes out in January. It's called Married for a Purpose. And again, it's a 52-week way for couples to connect on a weekly basis of different ways to better the relationship. And so that's, what we love to do, Jamie, honestly, is we've experienced incredible growth in business and in our relationship. And we like to help take people from where they're at and get them to where they want to be.
One of the things that we really focused on, which I think is pertinent for this listening audience, Jamie, this latest book that launches in January, Two Are Better Than One, Married for a Purpose. One of the things that we were very mindful of is the reality of the life in a busy couple, in a business couple. Because as we have careers and we have kids and we have laundry and dishes and
yeah, but I do the laundry and the dishes.
The oil needs changed and the yard needs mowed, right? Anyway, all those different aspects of life that keep us so busy. We wrote this in such a way that the busy couple can do it. So instead of writing a 365-day devotional for couples where couples come together every single day, what we decided to do is make it a weekly devotional so that folks could come together and receive some positive inspiration and then a thought to ponder and a focus for the week. So there's an assignment. It's not like a to-do assignment. It's really all about tooling our thoughts towards producing a desired result. And that way, couples can actually commit to coming together one time a week and then, completing that assignment, that thought assignment throughout the week. So it really works for the busy couple.
Yeah, the idea is that it's new habits of thinking for a higher way of living. So in a nutshell,
boom,
that's us.
That is awesome. Now, your background, you guys were in the corporate scene before you started writing these books. Tell us a little bit about that background in the corporate and kind of how that springboarded you or those experiences kind of helped you where you are right now.
I love that question because, as Julie mentioned earlier in our talk, we've worked together since we've been together. We were always speaking, actually. We started out leading classes and such on marriage. So we've spoke on marriage. Actually, that's funny to think about, but since we've been together. But we came from life and health insurance is where we spent the majority of our career. We were both wildly successful in that arena. We've bought and sold a few other businesses and coached in many businesses, Fortune 100 and even small mom and pop shops. And so with all of that background, really a lot of what we write about and we speak about for couples are principles that we took from the business world and things that we would apply to our own business and or in coaching other businesses. And we applied them to the home, in our home first. And that's really how all of this came to be. They're just principles that we use in business that we transferred into the home. And guess what? They work.
It's kind of like if you think about a business, the most thriving, most successful businesses are the businesses that share core values. They have an end vision in mind, so that the objective or the vision that they have allows them to all pull in the same direction.
It becomes their true north. It's where everybody knows what their part is and what the end game is, right?
Right. And then the most successful businesses take that end vision and allow each individual member to operate in their specific design, their specific giftings, their specific areas. And rather than trying to change one another, they're celebrating those differences because each of those differences brings strength to the overall vision and end game.
Right. The diversity is the strength of any team. If it's a sports team or a business team or a family team, the diversity is truly where each individual plays their unique part. If everybody has the same strengths, then we're going to be really lopsided and failing miserably in probably 90% of the areas that we need to be successful in order to be balanced. Balance is not a word I really like. I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but for the sake of this conversation now, in order to have a balanced approach, we need the diversity and strengths. But what happens so often, for instance, in marriage is we want to critique our mate or even our kids and try to make our strengths their strengths. And we want them to be at our competency in any particular area. And that undermines really what we believe is the value of the diversity and the differences and the different ways of thinking. Now, it causes us to have to, really take a deep breath sometimes and think about what the desired result is. And it certainly causes us to feel as though we're compromising at times. But at the end of the day, if we really learn how to celebrate our differences and leverage those differences, then we're certainly going to come up with a better outcome.
Obviously couples go through ups and downs in whatever relationship you're in, not just couples, but just friendships and business relationships. You go through ups and downs sometimes. And you talk about, some of those challenges of my thoughts should be her thoughts. I mean, I can't believe my wife doesn't believe the same thing I do half the time, and if she would just do that, we would get along so well. With those kind of things, when we are struggling with those things, what are some practical tips or some wisdom just in general, to maybe find the common ground or repair a relationship after my wife doesn't do exactly what I think she should do, or she doesn't think just like I should think or I would think?
So I'll speak, and then if you have anything, babe. I think for let me just give you a common area where maybe we have had potential struggles.
Potential struggles.
Potential
Is that
struggles.
the way you're going to frame that up?
That's how I'm going to phrase it. Yeah. So let's just talk about
Let's talk about where we fought like cats and dogs. Just kidding. Go ahead.
So no, but in the area of parenting. So Jamy, I am, if you get to know me, you meet me, I am the optimal encourager. Like, I love to bring out and celebrate. I'm looking for any reason to celebrate. Somebody got the mail in. I'm celebrating. Let's go out to dinner, right? I'm looking for opportunities to encourage. And I think that I bring out the optimal in my kids by encouraging them. Greg also wants to bring out the best in our kids, and he does that through excellence, and he holds them accountable. And he holds them to higher standards of living. And he believes that the way that he should parent and we should parent is by bringing out their best and pointing out areas where they can get better. Now, I'm being he's into excellence and I'm into encouragement. Truthfully, we both share both of those attributes. But the expression of that has over the years at times conflicted. And when we were opposing, I could have thought he's being critical. And he could be, well, she's just a pushover and she's going to cause a boy, on her mom's apron strings. And we could have come from that angle. But the truth is we both desire kids who are successful. Our end objective, our responsibility as parents is to help them step into who God designed them to be and to live into that and to become successful, thriving adults. And what we realized is they needed both encouragement and excellence. And the more that we could celebrate one another's strengths and pull together, there were times where I would touch Greg's leg or something and say, babe, you need to be a little bit softer. It's coming across harsh. And he could touch my leg and say, babe, hey, they need a little bit more accountability. You're being too soft. And this is the end result. And so we unified as a couple to bring out their best. And then we would privately help one another to see where there were blind spots. And I think that that's the best thing that we can do in business. We all have blind spots. We all have areas of different strengths. And if we look at those things as competition, we forget the need for being able to have those differences.
So to break that down, really, the core of what Julie's illustrating there is that the way that we begin to come together when we're in opposition is we focus on what is the desired result. Again, it's the same question. Excuse me. If we can focus on what the desired result is, and sometimes it takes us a minute to be able to shape that into something that we both robustly agree with. And sometimes it has to go on a very high level for us to get to a place to where, okay, we agree that this is the end desired result. But if we can do that, then it allows us to begin to build a bridge with what we do agree on. And all bridges are built on common ground. It's built on what it is that we do agree on. It's not in the differences. And then we work through the common ground towards that desired result, and we begin to formulate a unique plan on how to attain that desired result. It's sort of like, we've heard this proverb, as iron sharpens iron. And I know at least as guys, when we hear that, we're like, and it's a chest bump, iron sharpening iron. I got your back, brother, But the truth is if we think about it, iron sharpening iron, well, what's that look like? Well, first of all, it requires some friction. It's the differences. It's the dissimilar metals. It's the difference in those two metals coming together that causes the sharpening. And each one has their purpose and their place in that process. But there's some grinding going on but there's a better result because of that difference. And so we try to put that out there as kind of a word picture for folks to remember that just because there's a grind doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. That is exactly what in life causes us to grow and to become stronger and reveals our blind spots.
So when did you guys become so wise at this marriage thing?
Perfected. Oh boy, still working on it. Through lots of trial and error, buddy.
You mean just coaching people on it doesn't mean that you're perfect at it?
You know what's the brilliant thing about coaching other couples is we get to see all of their flaws, and then we can make ourselves feel better by that. No, no. Truthfully, by being able to spend a lifetime of discovery of where we could be better, stronger, and working with other couples who have that design and desire. It helps us to always keep in mind. And I think that that's the thing. You know, John Maxwell talks about the biggest gap in life is the gap between knowing and doing. And because we're privileged to do what we do, it keeps those fundamental principles always in front of us to help us stay grounded and to grow.
That's good stuff.
You know, you mentioned some other couples. Obviously, you work with so many people in so many different areas. What are a few examples or some great stories maybe that you've seen that you're proud of or that highlight some of your coaching?
Well, one of the things that we get to do, Jamie, we've had, we do what we call marriage retreats in our homes. They're marriage life plans. And the idea is we firmly believe that God has a purpose for you. God has a purpose for your spouse. And he holds a common purpose, a desired outcome, a vision, a purpose for you as a couple. And so I think that we spend a lot of time trying to discover our individual design and why we're here, and we want to live lives of significance. And we forget that, wow, we just joined two together. What is that vision? What can we accomplish together? So we love helping couples step into that. I think one of the ones that immediately comes to mind, probably in both of our minds, is a couple that had been married for about 27 years. They had and experienced every challenge under the sun and really were at wit's end. They had exhausted their resources trying to get counseling and just really were still struggling to move forward. And they were at the point where they just didn't know if they could survive, but they both wanted to.
And they had been living separately for 2 years in two separate households. So literally had been through counseling, had been, multiple counselors for that matter, had been to marriage retreat weekends, just all kinds of different stuff. And so they came to visit us. We spent 3 days with them doing a marriage life plan. And it was really quite a morphing to witness, because when they first came in, there was distance between them as they sat on the couch. They were very rigid. Their responses were kind of short and let's just say not honoring to one another, very much keeping score, living in the past, all of those things that sometimes we can be tempted to do. And the short version is that by the time they left, they were sitting by each other. They were holding hands, touching each other's legs, like
they were giddy, like
yeah, they were giggling, they were flirting. And they went back and moved back into their home as husband and wife again. Now, was it just, the picture perfect white picket fence from that point forward? Absolutely not, but there was significant growth, and they're together today again as husband and wife as a result of what happened in that weekend. And we actually have several stories that are very similar to that, but for the sake of time, that's one that, like Julie said, comes to, because they were on the edge of the cliff, toes dangling over, getting ready to jump,
I think overall, the thing that I love watching is these universal principles, these value-based principles of you find what you're looking for, what you feed grows, what you starve dies, all of those different concepts. When people hold fast to those basic concepts and begin to implement it, when they begin to celebrate instead of comparing and trying to change or control one another, and they celebrate one another, that is the joy of my soul, of watching couples be able to step into new patterns of thinking for their relationship.
Absolutely.
we have a lot of listeners that are successful business people or successful in whatever field it is that they're in. And some of them may be even thinking, well, this sounds all great, but I'm trying to grow my business. I'm trying to be successful. This sounds like a lot of work, or I'm not sure I have time to do all this with my marriage. What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, I love the question because it's very real, Jamie. And I would never respond curtly. The bottom line is this. It's a very real challenge. And who among us that is a business owner isn't trying to grow our business, right? I think, I'll speak for myself and then I'll allow Julie to speak for herself. But I know that it has been a concerted, very intentional effort over the years to make sure that I maintain work-life balance, if you will. Now, I'm going to take the liberty to speak just a little bit about my take on balance because I don't believe in it. And a lot of people throw mud at me for that, but that's okay. I'm good with it. I think that life is really a little bit more of a controlled wobble than it is balance. And I say that because hopefully that'll free somebody a little bit in where they're at, because balance, I believe, in life is an illusion if you think that it is that everything is equal all the time, and that's balance. It's not. There are seasons in life, and I think it's important to recognize what season that we're in at any given time and to communicate. There have been times when my business or our business required more of me or more of us than any other area. It demanded it if we wanted to survive and grow and attain the results that we're looking for. And the problem is that I think a lot of guys in particular, and I don't mean that stereotypical, it's just been my experience, that we can get very, very focused on that. And we like to say that I'm doing it all for you, which is just not true. It's not that we're not doing it for our family, but we're also doing it for our own sense of achievement and accomplishment and so on and so forth. So I just say that it's a little bit brash, and I get that, but you know what? It's about you too. So be honest if you're going to communicate. But if you can recognize what season you're in and communicate, there's been times that I've sat down with Julie and I've said, babe, the next couple of months are going to be a booger, man, and the business is going to require a lot of me. And what I commit to is to being intentional during the times when I can so that we can come together. And then I think that the next thing is asking our mate, our family, or whatever, what can I do during this very busy season to make sure that I'm communicating that I love you and that I care about you? And so just those basics will go a long way if we will implement what they're saying. And I think the communication goes a long way. One of the things that I've made a practice over the years is as I'm rolling up in the driveway after a long, hard, crazy day, no matter what time of day it is, I think to myself, I'm getting ready to need to be a dad. I'm getting ready to need to be a husband. And all too often for a lot of my career, what I did was I rolled up in the driveway and I was exhausted and I walked in the home expecting to be served. I put in a long day. But guess what? So have the kids and so is my wife. So it did me a lot of good. And by the way, guys, the benefits of doing this far outweigh, any crow that you might have to eat. Is I'm mentally prepared, just like I would mentally prepare to go into a sales meeting or something of that nature. I'm mentally prepared. And sometimes I'd sit in the driveway for a couple of minutes and I'd say to myself, self, get ready to be a dad, get in here and serve. Do not expect to be served. Go in to serve. And even if I was tired, just that mental check. And you know what? We feel good when we do that too. Throw out the scoreboard and just go in and serve your mate and your family. And what's really cool about that is over the long haul, they'll all reciprocate, and it makes for a happy home. Love, how would you respond to that? I would love to hear your take.
I think it's a great question, Jamie, and I guess the question I would ask back to those busy business leaders is, what is it that you do want? What is it that you want as your legacy We hear it said all the time on our
that's great.
deathbed, the last thing that we're concerned about is how many toys we get to take to the graveside, right? Usually most people live in a place of, wow, I wish I would have had more time with my kids. Wish I would have made more time for that relationship. And so we don't ever want anyone to live into a place of regret where we're looking back and thinking, wow, I wished I would have. And so I think the more that we can get a clear vision, do we want family? Do we want thriving relationships? Is that part of our end vision and legacy? And if the answer to that question is yes, then we have to remember to keep what's most important. I love how Stephen Covey says, most of us spend too much time on what's urgent and not enough time on what's important. And so the more that we can, as business leaders, decide what's important, then we just create them and manage and put margin in our life to keep those things priority. We're writing books. We are traveling, speaking. We have a thriving coaching business. And another business that we do, another completely
home
different.
Healthcare company.
A home health company. So, in all of that, it can be like, well, how do you do that? And the only answer I can say is that on any given day, that ever elusive idea of balance, we understand that there's give and take. There are times where we communicate to the kids and we just say, kids, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be really busy. But then we're also very intentional when those 2 weeks are done, that there is a time of celebration and we come back to. And so we always keep what's most important now in front of us. In any given day, I think that those are the most, how can I add value in my business? How can I add value in my home? And I think it's more than just something like a checklist that we do. It's who we are. And who we are defines how we do everything. And principles that we put into our business, if those things don't exist in our home as well, I think that we're selling ourselves short. And those are the places that we need to put some concentration and effort back into so that we can leave that lasting legacy that we desire.
I know we've given a bit of an exhaustive answer to this. I just had one more quick thing to add to that idea of seasons. The real core point there is that at any given time, sometimes our relationship will be the thing that requires a lot more of us. Sometimes our spiritual walk, our faith journey will require more concentration. Sometimes parenting, sometimes our physical bodies will require more attention. And I think that, again, the temptation when it comes to the business side of things is that we can allow that season to last too long. And it seems like it's perpetual and it never ends. And if you talk to executives or people at any level who have done that, I think you'll find that their end result has not been one that is desirable. And so remembering that any season that endures too long does not produce life in the end, So recognizing season and take control of our lives. It's not a to-do list. It's a matter of becoming better.
Yep. And if we don't safeguard what's most important, we live at the mercy of what always seems urgent.
Absolutely love that answer. You both gave great insights. There were some thoughts there that I hadn't thought about before, so thank you for that. You guys are with John Maxwell team. You've been associated with John Maxwell for a long time. As a coach, as a college basketball coach, I used to rely on his stuff for leadership training for my players and eventually became a John Maxwell team member myself. Tell me a little bit about your origins and your genesis of getting hooked up with the John Maxwell group.
Well, that's a great story, and we'll try to slap the top of the waves here for you, and if you want more detail, feel free to ask. But we have been students of John's for decades, honestly. Again, we've both been in business together over the years and read his books, and it was nice to read someone's work that challenged me, yet at the same time we could go, gosh, I totally agree with what this guy's saying. It makes sense. I'm glad somebody else gets it, right? And so when John and Scott Fay and Paul Martinelli formed this organization, the John Maxwell team, we were very excited to to get involved, and we've been deeply and heavily involved since then. And I guess the thing that keeps us coming back is and continuing to feed, if you will, within this tribe is the relationship, the like-mindedness, and the growth opportunities, along with just plain old mentorship. So when we came to join the team, we were in a really crazy whirlwind downturn of life. Everything that we had known had been shaken and turned upside down. We moved our family and our dog across the country, literally 3 times in 1 year. We moved from Kentucky to Texas and from Texas to Florida, and we were unloading the truck in Florida 11 months from the day we pulled out of Kentucky originally. What we thought was going to happen, but it's what ended up happening. We went, I guess, 3 years without any income. And we were both just searching for how to pull out of this, this crazy roller coaster ride in the dark going downhill that we couldn't figure out when the hill actually ended, And so when we found the opportunity to join the John Maxwell team, we did not have the money to commit at all, but we both really felt resoundingly that it was the right thing to do. And so we did. And we immediately began to apply everything that we could that we were learning from the John Maxwell team and the teaching and how to build a business, from their perspective and such, and landed a couple of contracts. And the first contract was a $36,000 contract for 6 months. Right as that one was about to come to an end, we could have renewed that contract. We chose not to, but we picked up another contract that was ended up being a little over $80,000 for a year. So, there's been the financial piece of it, of actually using what we're being taught, but there's also been just the personal growth journey, the like-mindedness, and all the connection that we've had with the people across the country, like people like you. Who we've come to not only respect, but love, many of them. And then just honestly, just the very natural networking opportunities. It's not like we're out there hunting, for networking opportunities in that way. It's a very, very natural place where people are like, hey, I like what you do. Can you help us? Or we might reach out to someone and say, hey, we like what you do. We need a speaker for this, or we need somebody to do this. Can you help us? It's just a very natural place for growth.
Where can people connect with you guys or learn more about your services and what you guys are up to?
I think a great way in an overall business would be gormanleadership.com. We offer a lot of variety of services. If they're looking specifically for marriage and marriage enrichment, they can go to marriedforapurpose.com, and that would be a great way to connect with us either way.
Yeah, and we'd love to find them as a like on our Facebook page, Married for a Purpose, as well. We've moved away from, gregandjulie.com and Greg and Julie Facebook pages and such, and really moved things under that brand of Married for a Purpose, because that's central to really what the message is that we speak about as well.
Well, excellent, guys. I really appreciate your time and your insights. They were great. This is definitely one that I recommend to a lot of people listening, and I know my wife will make sure that I listened and take notes to this as well, and start to put some of this stuff into practice. So this might not have been this might have got me in trouble a little bit, having to do this podcast with my wife. She'll call me on it, but that's a good thing. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks for having us, Jamy.
We've been blessed to be here, Jamy. You've been great. Thank you.
What a treat today to get to listen to Greg and Julie Gorman. They have such a positive attitude about life. It's hard not to be motivated after listening to them. Thank you so much for tuning into the show today, and I hope that you got a lot out of that interview. We'd love for you to share it with some of your friends, and one easy way to do that is to give this a quick 5-star review on iTunes, as this will help others find the podcast. Thanks so much, and until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?